signing clients or your escrow clients, whatever it is, really makes a difference. And we're going to get into that as we go down too. What the second part of what we were going to talk about is integrity and how important that is. Integrity means a lot of different things to different people. It's a very internal decision in most cases, and then in other cases, like when you're on Notary Public, you have to have integrity, knowing what it is that you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. That's your responsibility. And you've agreed to those terms whenever you become a Notary Public, so you have to stay in integrity with that. And then another huge factor of integrity that a lot of people don't realize is showing up on time is integrity. So if you're late, you are out of integrity, and there's always room for negotiation on things, but as a professional, you always want to be on time, whether it's for a phone call, a meeting, a signing, an interview, whatever it is. Stay in integrity. And the reason that I really drive integrity home so much is that there's a lot of different opinions and a lot of different teachings and trainings that are out there available to you, and some of them actually teach the opposite of integrity. They teach you to step outside of integrity, to go against your gut, to go against what's right. And I urge you to always trust your sense of what's right and wrong, and never do anything that pushes you outside of that. If it doesn't feel right, if it feels sleazy, it probably is, and you shouldn't do it. You can make a lot of money in this business, and you can connect to a lot of people being honest and being integrity. In fact, those are relationships that are going to last a lifetime, not just a transaction. And that's what we're going for here. You're not looking for a transaction. Oh, thanks for the $150. You're going for a lifetime of connection, joy, and then of course the revenue's there too, but always have the big picture in mind. Do I want $150 or do I want $150,000? Those are what you can do whenever you show up with integrity and authenticity. So do you have
Bill,
yeah.
Can I interject something about being on time? Because this is what I impart to my students. When you have people who are doing probably the most important financial thing of their life, they're waiting for you. They know that this woman or this man is coming at 6 o'clock. They start watching that clock at 6 o'clock, and they start getting really nervous by 5 minutes after. So I tell my students, even if you're going to be 10 minutes late, you need to call and let these people know that there's been a problem and you're apologizing and you will be there, because people can get very freaky when you're not there when you say you're supposed to be.
Here's the thing about this business, and this is what I've learned in my experience. You know when you're going to be late. There's either traffic feels weird, where everything's backed up, or clients are just reading every document, or one client was late, so everybody's late. I know usually several hours in advance. And even if I'm not late, I tell people I'm going to be. And I give them 3 or 4 hours notice. Look, hey, one of my clients was late. It's kind of bumped my schedule. Do you have flexibility to go at 5:30 instead of 5 p.m.? Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And then I might still show up on time. But I've given them so much time that they can plan their life. It's the signing agents that at 5:58, they text for 5:58 p.m. for a 6 p.m. signing, and then they text or call and say they're going to be 30 minutes late. Those are the ones that piss people off, because they're just like Carol said, they're sitting, they're waiting, they're holding off on eating dinner until you leave. So, who knows what's going on. So the more notice you can give, the better. And that's huge, guys. And the reason that's so huge, and I'm sure Carol has tons of stories. I have like this arsenal of stories about terror experiences with notaries that don't show up or show up in pajamas. I've got all of those too. The cool thing is that gives opportunity for people like you and me to step up and really bring the joy to this entire program, to our clients. There's so much room for us to shine and really raise the standard. Like Carol said in the very beginning, we can raise the bar in this entire industry just by doing normal stuff like showing up on time and dressing well and those kinds of things. Okay, so let's, I know we kind of went off on a tangent on that one. Shall we do this example document?
Sure.
Okay.
Which one are you going to do?
I'm going to do the note.
You want to do the note, or what are you going to do?
I'm going to do the note.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the deed of trust was going to be too long, and I know we have a little bit of a time crunch now, especially with our technical problems. So guys, what I'm going to share with you is the script that I use on virtually every single note that I do in a signing. And what this is it's literally a script, and I use it on every signing, and I have one of these for almost every single document that could be in a loan document package. The reason I created this was in the first few years of my business, I used to get knots in my stomach before every signing. I was so nervous. I didn't know what I was going to see. I didn't know how to explain things. So it was just like I was reinventing the wheel after every single signing. So that was a miserable life for me. So I came up with a script that is designed to address questions before they're asked and just allow for smooth and efficient transitions. And it actually has worked out really well. So I'm going to share my screen here. And what you're seeing is just a traditional note. And this is it's actually for a VA loan, but it does not matter. So I'm going to set this document in front of the borrower. And I'm going to start like this. So with this next document, this entire stack of paper in front of you basically supports these 4 pages. This is called your note. It's your promise to pay the loan back. So it has all the terms of your loan. So it's very similar to the closing disclosure that we went over earlier. You're going to see your loan amount, your fixed interest rate. Your first payment is not due until December 1st. You do have a right to prepay the loan at any time with no prepayment penalties. And every month they give you a 15-day grace period. And then after that, on day 16, they're going to charge you 4% of your principal and interest only payment. And then of course, if you just stop making payments altogether, there is some ramifications for that. If I could just get your signature right here on page 4. Boom, and that's it, guys.
Can I add something, Bill?
Absolutely.
Very important, and I think you and I talked about it. One of the things as you're going through these documents, sorry folks, it doesn't stop ringing, but my assistant will pick it up. One of the things that's extremely important as you're going through these documents is that you don't sit and read them, and Bill does not do that, I know, but you want to make sure that their eyeballs are actually looking at it. You're holding that note so that they can see it. You can use a pointer, whether it be your finger or a pencil or something. It's extremely important that they are reading it and looking at it while you're showing it to them, because there is a possibility that if you're reading it to them, that somebody is going to at some day call the lender when they get the final paperwork and their bill, and they're going to say, the notary told me that my interest rate was at 3.65 and it's at 4.6 as the notary. So it's very important that you make sure that they're looking at it, that they read it, that they hear it.
Yeah, and so the real talent that comes from this is that we have to walk a very fine line between explaining and briefly describing. So we're not licensed financial professionals, so we cannot explain their loan, how it works. All we can do, like Carol said, we can explain the what and the where, but we can't explain the how or the why. You can't get into that because that has too many variables. Our job is just to show them where to find the information on the document and make sure that everything gets signed, dated, and initialed correctly. Carol, you want to talk a little bit about the etiquette part on the dress?
Yeah, well, okay. Here's my take on it, and this is how I teach. I know that there are companies that will say you have to meet a certain code. Men have to be in suit and ties, women in the high heels and dresses. I've seen that on instructions. And quite frankly, I never did see myself or anyone else going to a cattle farm in the middle of Texas with their high heels on. I think that you need to dress appropriately, and I believe, and I think you do too, in business casual. Your grooming is everything. You've got to be clean. You've got to be well-dressed in that you're not going to be wearing holy blue jeans or tank tops. I would not suggest to anybody that they go with piercings, no flip-flops. You want to be dressed nice, comfortable business casual clothing. Things like, and we've talked about this, things like parking your car. Don't pull into their driveway. You don't know who else might be looking to park there. Or if you're blocking the garage and keeping somebody else from leaving, going to work or whatever. So you want to find an appropriate place to park where you're out of the way. Etiquette includes, I think, even going so far as to not putting on a lot of what is the cologne that the men may put on, or perfume for a woman. You don't know what kind of sensitivities they have. They could be allergic to it. So, I mean, it's all kinds of things. It's the way that you handle yourself when you're there. You certainly wouldn't wander around the house by yourself. If you needed to use the restroom, which you really should not do, but if you absolutely have to, you need to be polite. And I mean, I don't know, there's just so many things that go into the etiquette field, but those are the things I talk about.
Yeah, so there is so much that a lot of times you don't think about it, because it just seems for some it's common sense to do it. For others, it just seems like they could do it. But just so you know, guys, in all my years of experience, I've never used a customer's restroom. I'll wait for a Starbucks, I'll hit a gas station or whatever it is. I do not ask. People get very uncomfortable with that, because a lot of times they're moving, things are a mess, they get so insecure about it. And then the other thing is food and beverage, guys. There's a couple of different reasons why you would not accept food and beverage from a customer. Number one, you never know what's in it. So there's a safety issue there. And then also, a lot of people do it because it's polite to offer it, but you should be prepared on your own without it. Now, there's some exceptions, like Carol brought up, and I know for sure in like hot areas, you've got to stay hydrated. And if you're out of water and you need water, get some water. But also take personal responsibility for yourself. Have an ice chest full of water. Stop at a gas station ahead of time. Hydrate yourself if you have time. There's going to always be exceptions, but as a general rule of thumb, we're not eating, we're not drinking. Plus, oh yeah, Carol, the mess issue, right? You have open containers on the table and you spill it. Both Carol and I have nightmare stories about actually doing that. And I actually have a video on YouTube about the day I did that and spilled coffee all over an entire set of documents. It's a total nightmare. And it's a big
A&W root beer.
Or you got root beer, yeah. So keep those things in mind as you're going through it. Now let's talk a little bit about industry norms. I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit here, because we're coming up to the 1 hour mark, and I want to make sure we get to some of these great questions that people are asking. So one of the things that you can just expect as a loan signing agent, working for signing companies especially, is late documents. That's where the signing company or the escrow company sends you the documents like super late. You got a 2 o'clock appointment, it's noon, you still don't have documents, and you have an hour drive. That sometimes happens pretty on the regular sometimes. So you got to be prepared for that. Did you have anything you wanted to talk about specifically on the late documents, Carol?
Just that they're the most frustrating things. It's just unbelievable how casual the lenders and some of the title companies take that situation. We prepare, we do everything we're supposed to do, we make the appointment, we want to be there on time, and maybe you've taken the appointment 2 days ago, they've had plenty of time, and now you are with a 5 o'clock appointment and it's 3 o'clock and you don't have any documents. It's so frustrating. And everybody, I know all of my students, they call me when this happens. They're just beside themselves, but it's happening more and more. It's very frustrating. So here's what I suggest that people do. Once you get started and you start working with the same companies over and over again, you're going to get a real good feel for what lenders and what companies are not going to be giving you the documents on time. So as you're setting the appointment, when you're confirming the appointments, I actually get to the point where I would say there is a possibility that the documents will be late, and I will let you know, but are you available a little bit later if we have to extend this time a little bit? And that seems to be working for my students really well. It takes that fear and that terrible frustration letting people down and not showing up because you don't have documents. But yeah, it happens all the time now. Very bad.
Yeah, that's a really great idea. That's really being proactive and taking control of that. And it'll blow your mind how cool people are. When you communicate with them ahead of time, they're totally flexible. And if they're not, they'll tell you, and you can make some stuff happen. So let's talk a little bit about incorrect documents too, because it kind of ties into this. Very oftentimes, well, I wouldn't say very oftentimes, but every now and then you get documents that are incorrect. I'm going to hit mute again, guys. Sorry, we got some background here. Everybody again?
Are people able?
Carol, I just muted you. Sorry, you have to unmute yourself.
We've not used this platform. We were going to do something else and it didn't work. Are people able to decide whether they want us to see them or not?
Yes, they can make that
because
decision.
We see some of you.
Yep, they can turn their camera on or off. And I've seen some comments in here. We got some people who are dressed in pajamas and who knows what else. So if your camera's not on, that's totally okay. And then some of you are. Thank you. I love seeing your faces as well. So
I'll go get my jammies on.
I'm right behind you. So now and then you're going to get incorrect documents, guys, and who knows what the corrections are. It's usually address problems or name problems. When you have errors like that or mistakes on the documents, you don't have the power to determine what to do on that. That needs to go to the closing agent, and they will go up the chain and figure out how to fix it. Luckily, sometimes making corrections right at the signing is a possibility. And the way you make corrections on the document, you'll just follow the lender's instructions, but it's usually you just strike it out with one, or you'll have the signer strike it out with one single line, write in the correction, and then initial it. So minor mistakes can be fixed right at the table. Occasionally, it will require a full redraw of the documents. And if that's the case, that's a whole other ball of wax. It is a pain. You probably have to go back and pick up documents somewhere wherever you're doing your printing and then come back. So in a perfect world, that would be a double signing and you should be compensated twice. For escrow companies, one thing that I teach, I really advocate for going for signing companies because when you do, there's a whole other level of respect, guys. When you work with escrow officers, they value your service. They treat you respectfully. It's business to business. If you have to go out twice, or if you have to print twice, or it's a long trip, they compensate you without question usually. When you work with signing companies, that's where things get kind of muddled a little bit, and they won't want to pay you a full fee for showing up to do your job. They'll maybe only charge you $20 or pay you $25 for the first trip and things like that. That's just part of the game, unfortunately, we play with signing companies. And that's why I'm such a huge advocate for working with Escrow Direct. And we're going to get into that a little bit in phase 4 here in a second. Now, the other thing that you're going to run into very oftentimes is identification issues, where the name on the ID does not match the name on the documents, or there might be other errors like having a junior or not having a junior, being the third, having more middle names or last names than what's shown on the documents. Those are pretty common errors too. And each one is kind of handled case by case. And we'll dive into the ID training. I think, Carol, that would probably be a really good one for you and I to go really dive deep into, because there's so many different ways that could go.
Okay, well, here's kind of a simple rule as far, because a lot of times on the documents, you'll have someone who has their first name, their middle initial, their last name. Is this what you want me to talk about specifically?
Sure.
Bill, is the things that we run into most commonly?
We can just give a quick example.
So you have someone who has a first name, middle initial, last name on the documents. And you're looking at their identification, and they have their first name, their entire middle name, and their last name. If it's more on the identification than it is on the documents, but it all kind of matches the first name, middle initial, last name, then you're fine. You don't have to worry about it. Now, here's one of my pet peeves, and I'm just going to impart this. This might be a little bit too much, but I want to say it because it's really important. For years, when we would have a signing, go to the people's homes, and we would have them sign the way they normally would sign. You'd check their ID, you'd see that maybe it was a scribble, so you'd have them use that signature because that's their legal signature. So many companies would come back in those days, and they would say, we can't use this, they have to sign the name so that we can read it. And there was a bunch of us that were pretty proactive in this business. And we determined that no, you are not going to make this signer sign with the name which is opposite to the way that their legal signature is. And that's what we would say. I am not making this person forge their own signature. I don't know if you've run into this. I'm sure you have, Bill, right? Signatures that are illegible. So
Yeah.
that's what I do. And I've never had anybody since then in the last few years ever say, no, we won't accept that signature. You tell them that you're asking them to forge their signature if they don't put their legal signature, and they leave you alone now.
That's an interesting spin on it for sure. So my general rule of thumb is I love illegible signatures because there's no way to question the signature. It's when you have legible signatures that do not match, that's where you're going to run into the problem. So like if you have a lady whose name is Sherry Marie Smith, and that's how they have her name typed on the document, but she signs Sherry Smith, and you can read it as Sherry Smith where it's clearly missing the Marie. That's where lenders push back.
Yeah.
Nope,
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm talking about scribbled signatures.
Yep, no,
Two dots in a line.
well, those are a dream for me because a lender can't argue with those.
They can't argue with it.
As long as it matches the ID. So that's the other problem that you run into, guys. And this is one of the things, this is where adaptability in this industry really will serve you, because there is no umbrella statements. We can't just say, yes, the signature like this works all the time. It doesn't work that way. Almost nothing in this industry does. So you have to be adaptable. You can't get so frustrated and upset with it. Otherwise, you'll just drive yourself crazy all day long. It's okay to ask. If you see something like this and the signature, maybe Sherry's signature, and you do see these a lot, like that. And
I always ask them if that constitutes their full signature, their full name,
exactly. And if
as it is on the identification.
Yep. If their ID says this, and that represents Sherry Marie Smith, then you're usually golden. Now, there are some lenders out there, you know, you get the Providence, and some of the ones that are way OCD and how they do.
Providence is ridiculous.
It's over the top. And they literally say, it does not matter what their normal legal signature is, they have to sign the document this way. And the reality is, guys, the lender and the closing agent are the ones that we're working for. So if this borrower wants the loan to close, they have to follow the instructions the way that the lender says. So we do not want to be a bottleneck and jam things up for everybody in the process just because we don't want to, you know, push the lender or the borrower to sign a certain way that's uncomfortable for them. That's the way the lender's requiring it, and that's the way we're going to have to do it. Now, I have done the same thing Carol said. When I have evidence, I got an ID that shows this, the signing happened at 8 o'clock at night, nobody was open to verify the signature, so I let them sign like this, and then they'll come back and say, no, we need them to sign the legal way. I will, or the other way, I'll go to bat on this. And it sometimes works, it sometimes doesn't. Sometimes they have to re-sign. If you really want to be safe, you just have them sign exactly as the name's typed. All right, let's go. Whoops. We're going to talk a little bit about printing now. I know printing is a major concern. And for those of you who are relatively new to the industry, printing, you are responsible for printing the documents in most cases, especially when you're working with signing companies. They're either going to upload the documents to a secure portal, or they're going to email them securely to you, or they might have some other software where you can download the documents and print at home. And there's a couple of different options for printing. And Carol, I know that you had mentioned you typically you want a dual tray printer. You want it to be a laser printer, relatively fast. Some of these loan document packages are 150 to 200 pages, but that's and you have to be able to print on both legal and leather sizes. Now, Carol, you had mentioned, and I see it in the forums a lot, that there's new software out there where that's not necessarily required anymore, right?
Yeah, in the days when I first started, I think that I paid $700 or $800 for our first dual tray printer. It was a Ricoh, and we got it at Costco. And then after that, it was an HP, which was $650 for a dual tray monochrome laser printer. But just recently, my husband bought one. It's an HP. It's not a dual tray. It has a single tray, but it does print on legal and letter. It was $219, and it's a great printer. Metal parts, which you want to watch for. So what we have on my graduates, I have a graduates website. Now on the graduates website, we offer, they give us a little discount for Page Separator. And this is a great program. It's so easy. It's a software program, and that enables people to not have to go out and spend $500, $600, $700 on a real workhorse of a laser printer. They can get this type of a printer, and then the Page Separator, when you get documents, you import those documents into this system, this Page Separator, and then it will either merge if you've got a lot of attachments, or separate single if it's just a single attachment. But it will merge and separate, or separate into two folders. After it finishes separating, you've got a folder that is for letter size paper, one that's for legal size paper. When you go to print, you just make sure that you tell your printer you're printing on letter paper. Make sure that that one tray is filled with letter paper, and it prints out all of those documents. You just put in legal paper and instruct your printer to print on legal size paper, and everything prints beautifully, just as if you had that dual tray. When you're buying a printer, the one thing I really want you to know is you've got to know whether you're getting metal parts or plastic parts, because I have a lot of students who'll go out and they'll spend $300, $400 on a dual tray laser printer, and then they're calling me 6 months later and saying, that printer I loved so much is now broken and it cannot be repaired because it has plastic parts.
Yeah, you run into that a lot, especially at that price point. The next is document return. So also as a notary, let me talk a little bit. This is kind of step 4 stuff too, but as far as documents go, when you're working escrow direct, there is opportunity for those who don't mind driving and hustling to avoid some of your printing expense. So one of the things that I do is I very rarely have to print anymore, because I pick up my documents from my client's office. And I pretty much am 100% escrow direct now. Every now and then I'll do a signing company, but it's usually just escrow direct. I like to go to the client's office. I like to be in front of their face. I like to interact. I like to continue that relationship. So it keeps building and building and building. So now I've got these awesome relationships because I'm in their office almost every single day. I'm picking up, I'm dropping off, whatever it might be. And I don't have to stress out and worry that, other people are moving in on my clients, or there's something wrong and something not being said. I'm in their office, I can check in with them, I can get feedback. So if you have a city that allows that and you don't mind the extra driving and the hustling, that's always an option for you. A direct escrow will give you the option to either pick up, or they can send them to you electronically.